the evidence is they didn't intend to take quite this many. They didn't intend to take the range of people, the older people, the babies. They didn't intend to do all that. They lost control of their operation as soon as it began, because they got much further past the border post than they expected to get, and the whole thing became a sort of spontaneous terrorist attack, which was brutal and completely beyond the pale of humanity, and they just went berserk. The point is, everybody wants a hostage deal for obvious reasons. I mean, the families in Israel have been in torment about this, and the people of Gaza have been suffering grievously. So the idea of a hostage deal relieves some pressure on some of the families and gets some aid in. And it's a 4-day ceasefire, which will, in theory, run till tomorrow, Monday. And it might go on longer. Netanyahu has said that he might be prepared to extend the ceasefire for each day that Hamas releases 10 more hostages. So by the end of Monday, if all keeps on going well, and there's lots that can go wrong, by the end of Monday, it's possible that 50 hostages will be released. If the deal is then extended for another, say, 5 days, which is what Netanyahu has talked about, there could be 100 released. And 100 out of 230 would be a great relief, but of course, it's a bittersweet thing. The issue that I draw attention to in what I've written is that this has reversed Netanyahu's previous policy. Before this breakthrough, Netanyahu was saying that the best way to free the hostages was to keep up the military pressure, keep pushing Hamas into the corner militarily, and we'll rescue those hostages that we can, and we'll try to do a deal at the end of the process for the others when Hamas is in desperate straits militarily. Now, that policy has been reversed by pressure from the international community, particularly from the United States, to say, no, let's have a pause. So now the offensive is on hold while we do this deal that may last for 9 days. And I think it might be quite difficult for Israel to restart the offensive if this pause does last beyond Monday for 9 days. And when it does restart the offensive, the Israelis have got a different sort of problem, because they've now got southern Gaza with 2 million people crammed into it, with I was working it out, a population density which is 40% greater than more than Greater London. Wow. And that's a real problem.
That is a real problem. And Michael, it's interesting what you say there about the kind of pressure and where the pressure moves to, because from a purely sort of human/humanitarian point of view, it's very easy to look at this situation and say, well, why wouldn't you just keep going until all the hostages are released?
Yeah, and the fact is that all the hostages won't be released because Hamas will play this game. I mean, Hamas have got the whip hand on this. They've got a large group of hostages, 230 odd, and they can release 10, 20, 30, but they'll certainly hold some hostages back, probably the military members, those members of the Israeli Defense Force that they took hostage, and probably some of the 20 Americans that they're holding or believed to be holding, because that will keep Joe Biden on the same sort of hook as Netanyahu. So all of the hostages will not be released during the course of this conflict. They'll be held. Some of them will be held perhaps for quite a long time. The alternative is that the Israelis simply go ahead with the offensive. It's as brutal as it may turn out to be, and the hostages the final hostages get killed, either executed or killed in the course of the offensive. But the idea of getting all of the hostages out is probably, and I'm sad to say this, it's probably unrealistic.
Is the slightly unpalatable reality here that this deal has given Hamas the upper hand, or should we consider that Hamas arguably had something of an upper hand anyway, in that it had the hostages from the word go?
Yes, that gave them a great leverage, and that was partly why they took hostages. They didn't. The evidence is they didn't intend to take quite this many. They didn't intend to take the range of people, the older people, the babies. They didn't intend to do all that. They lost control of their operation as soon as it began, because they got much further past the border post than they expected to get, and the whole thing became a sort of spontaneous terrorist attack, which was brutal and completely beyond the pale of humanity, and they just went berserk. And so they found themselves with a big group of hostages, and in a sense they lost some control over the whole point then, and they've been trying to work out since then how to handle this. But the pressure that Israel has been put under by the international community has actually given Hamas the whip hand. And so Hamas are able to use this now. They're trying to do two things. One is to, as it were, keep Israel on the back foot, and two, to forestall Israel's second phase operations against the south of Gaza. And so far, they've been reasonably successful at doing that. And so when Israel says our only objective in this war is to destroy Hamas, Hamas can be reasonably confident that though they're taking enormous losses and they are being dismantled in terms of their facilities and their storage and all the rest of it, and quite a lot of Hamas people have died, but Hamas will survive this. That's the way things look at the moment. Hamas will survive.
Michael, it's really interesting getting your thoughts. Thank you very much. Michael Clarke, visiting professor in Defence Studies at King's College London and a distinguished fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. His article is online for you, his analysis in full. After 50 days, Israel has lost control of the war. You can read that with a digital subscription. Go to thetimes.co.uk, where you can also leave your comments as well as you consider what Michael has to say there about the potential strategic difficulty that the Israeli government now faces should it choose, should it go ahead, as is the current plan, and ramp up its military offensive once again after this 4-day truce.
Thank you so much for watching. You get extra points for making it all the way to the end of the video.
And if you want to see more from me, Chloe and Callum, you can join us every Friday to Sunday on Times Radio from 6 a.m.